Hello everybody, Russian Batman back here with a new series I am doing. As you know, but maybe read the title, this series I am doing is going to be called Random Rants. And just a brief overview, I've wanted to do this for a while. And this, as the title suggests, is going to be me just rambling and ranting on about random stuff. I feel like these are unscripted, probably going to be lower quality wise videos. And there'll probably just be some random gameplay or maybe a speed drawing in the back. It'll most likely be some of my old gameplay from my other channel or some speed drawing of mine. If it's not mine, I'll give credit to whoever it is in the video. I'll either put the name up if I don't remember to say it, or yeah. So let's get into the topic. So the video is going to be pretty long. Just warning, I tend to ramble for a long time. So sit back, relax, play some games in the background, and yeah, just listen to me rant. And if you want to comment in about anything I say, feel free. This is a democracy. You could say whatever you want, disagree if you feel like it. But for this episode, I'm going to be talking about the book of Bobo-fett, because this show, I've had a good amount of time to think about it. And that's kind of part of the problem with the show. If I give you a good example, let me make an analogy to like drinks. Let's say, all shows are like drinks, okay? You would have some shows, right? That would, there are some really incredible shows that are like, fine wine, the longer you think about it, aka the longer you leave it out, the richer and the better it gets. That would be like a show like, Breaking Bad. The more you think of, at least in my opinion, the more you think about it, the more it's like, yeah, that's a great show. And I know I shouldn't be comparing Book of Boba-fett to one of the greatest shows of all time, but you'll see where I'm going with this. And then you got some other shows or movies and media that's like water. It's the same quality. You drink a glass of water, you leave it in the fridge for a few days, it's gonna taste like water. Now the water could be really good and really clean water, or it could be dirty water, but regardless, water is gonna taste the same. So I can't think of anything on the top of my head. Actually, you know what? A lot of Marvel movies, to be honest, some Marvel movies are like water. Like, I don't know, like movies like Ant-Man and the Wasp. You watch that once and you're like, okay, that was fine. And it stays relatively the same the more you think about it, And then there's the Book of Boba-fett. In my opinion, the Book of Boba-fett is like milk, okay? When you see it and you drink it the first time, you're like, all right, this is all right. It tastes however quality the milk is. But the longer you think about it, the worse it gets, in my opinion. And quick overview before I go into spoilers. What I recommend you do with the show, because I don't do reviews, but if I were to do reviews, I would probably just tell you what I think you should do, and then I'll go into spoiler reviews. So honestly, I don't think you should watch this show. I don't recommend watching it if you haven't seen it. I mean, unless you're a Star Wars fan, like a major Star Wars fan. And if you are, you've probably already seen it. So I don't recommend watching it. I don't think it's good. I don't think it's an engaging show. If you're a fan of The Mandalorian, you kind of have to watch it. So that's a problem. So what I recommend doing is just watching the last 3 episodes. It doesn't even matter who the side characters are. Their story is not interesting, so don't even bother wondering about it in the last episode. Watch those 3 episodes, and then you'll be fine, okay? You'll understand everything you need to know for Mando Season 3, okay? Now, let's get on to my thoughts on the Book of Boba-fett, and let me just first go over some positive things, because I'm going to be talking pretty negatively about the show. First off, that soundtrack is killer, okay? Dave Filoni, or whoever works on the soundtrack for Mandalorian and this show, like, the soundtrack alone gets you hype for the show. The rest of the show doesn't at all. But the soundtrack is like, oh, boom, 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 boom. The use of those, like, drums and the voice. And It's killer. I mean, it does in a way fit the desert vibe and the vibe they're going for in the show, and it's killer. So big props. Like I said, I don't want to completely just trash on the show, which I probably am. But the soundtrack is killer. Okay, I will admit it is one of it. I would say it's probably one of the greatest. I mean, I'm not a big Star Wars fanatic, but I would say it's probably some of the greatest Star Wars music you can hear. That intro and also the Mandalorian theme. Those themes are just great. Okay, for off the bat. I'm trying some other positive things. This is going to spoilers, so spoiler alert. If you want to watch it by any chance, I don't recommend you doing it, but the Rancor fight at the end. That was actually, I like that. I like the Rancor just beating up robots. It was like senseless, but it was fun. It was visually it was fun. It didn't really feel narratively in the show that last battle didn't feel earned, but as you're watching it as a standalone scene, yeah, that fight with the Rancor just beating up robots, it was cool. It's cool seeing the Rancor like just because I don't think we get to see. I'm not a big Star Wars person. Many people may know this, so I don't think you've ever gotten to see like the Rancor actually like beating up things its size. So I think it's cool to actually see an action scene with the Rancor like that. But yeah, so those are some of the positive things. Now let's get on to the negative things. And before I go over my biggest issue, which may be different than other people's biggest issues with the show, my biggest issue with the before I get into that, let me go over some other people's issues. The one major thing I hear on the internet, or two major things, is the first one would be the characterization of Boba-Fett. And that's something I completely agree that the characterization of Boba-Fett, it's weird in this show. Now I don't know how Boba-Fett's supposed to feel. Based off what I've heard and what I've it's been so long since I've seen the original trilogy. So I honestly don't know. He just kind of dies immediately. What I've heard, he's supposed to be this ruthless bounty hunter and whatnot. And he's really just kind of he hasn't really had, I've heard he hasn't really had a proper characterization besides ruthless bounty hunter. So to see this, it's odd. It is very odd because in this show he's like honor based, He's very heroic, but also comes across as pretty soft, which I feel like it's an issue in the fact like what he's doing in the show. Like it's this whole thing about him being soft, but at the same time they tell you he's trying to run a crime syndicate. Those two things don't really go hand in hand. So yeah, that's a bit weird. And you might think that, his character arc would be like going from mean to being like a bit kinder and a bit more good-hearted, I would say. But they don't show that either. Because there's this whole thing where they have all these flashbacks, right? Between the present day and the past when he was with the Tuscans, I believe. Yeah, the Tuscans. I don't remember all these names. So he was with the Tuscans, and this is supposed to, well, you could make the argument that this is when he becomes good-hearted and goes from being the ruthless bounty hunter to this kind of more honor-based person. But they don't really show that. Obviously, they show the training and whatnot, but they don't establish, at least in the show, that he was ruthless before he got indoctrinated into the Tuscans. If they showed that, I feel like it would have been more believable, but they don't, because as soon as he pops out of that Sarlacc pit, he is immediately kind of soft and honor-based and not really ruthless at all, like he's supposed to be, Like I said, in that scene, it's supposed to be like right after he was working for the Empire. So, and like, I think a good example of this is I've heard this one on the internet somewhere in some other guy's video, but when he gets an opportunity to escape the Tuscans, right, he offers the other prisoner to cut his ropes, right, and the prisoner just kind of instead he just becomes a massive snitch and starts screaming at the other, at the other guards to come get him, right? Well, and he kind of just does nothing about it. It feels like if at this stage he's still supposed to be, quote unquote, the ruthless bounty hunter, so it would have been a great scene to establish that, right? Maybe, to silence him, he chokes the guy out. Might have been a bit too violent for Disney, but, in this same show, you got Mando cutting a guy in half. So I don't think it's too far-fetched. He either does that, or maybe he just doesn't help the guy at all. He just saves himself. Maybe that could show him being selfish. And then maybe the Tuscans get him again, and then afterwards he has to learn. I feel like they have to have a scene, at least in the show. Like, I know in the context of the lore, they already kind of show him being a ruthless bounty hunter who works for the Empire, right? But if they don't establish that in the show, I feel like when you watch it, it feels like he feels very static. He feels the same, and that's an example of him, already being honor-based and already, wanting to help out his fellow people without, going through the proper training with the Tuscans. So it kind of feels like, well, why was he even with the Tuscans? If he was the same way the whole time. Like, the Tuscans didn't feel like they served anything for his character arc. If they, like I said, established it beforehand, it would have worked. And there was another scene where, like, he was looking out to this, he was like at this dune, and he was looking out, and he saw these bikers beating up these people, and he kind of like looked away in disgust, like he was, I don't know, like a Christian watching, like, a sex scene in a rated R movie. He's like, oh, this is terrible. People, they're beating up people. I'm like, you worked for the Empire. The people that, blew up literal planets. Yeah, and now you're like, I can't stand this brutality. Like, it doesn't feel right. It feels like it's a completely different character, basically. Which is fine, if the character was interesting. He kind of isn't. He's just kind of like, I want to honor, and he's like, I don't know. It just doesn't. He feels he's a static character. So that's the first complaint, and I agree with that complaint. Another one was the biker gang was a big one, and yes, I agree, the biker gang is stupid. I saw this one guy defending the biker gang, saying that, like, why did they hire the biker gang? Because, like, Boba-fett was an angsty teen, and he was, like, in the Clone Wars, and he wanted to rebel, and he saw potential in these angsty teens, and he wanted to give him a chance, like no one gave him a chance. And I'm like, that could be actually a really interesting thing in the show if they establish it in the show. Like, I don't know whose review it was, but he was praising the show for like the first half of the video, and he kept on taking instances from the Clone Wars, right? And basically using that as, hey, the Clone Wars establishes that, so that's why this feels so satisfying, or in stuff like that. And I feel like it might really work. This show could actually really work in parts for Clone Wars fans. The problem is, for people who don't watch Clone Wars and people who have been introduced to these live action shows through Mandalorian and want to watch more stuff like that, most of those people, like I said, just don't watch Clone Wars and haven't watched Clone Wars and probably won't want to watch Clone Wars. I mean, maybe I should watch Clone Wars. I haven't seen Clone Wars, but all this stuff, it's like, if it's in Clone Wars, you need to reestablish it, In the context of a show like this, I feel like, a lot of people might say, like, it's just rehashing. I don't want to see this again. But the general audience and people just need it, and for just the show to feel like its own show and a satisfying thing, and not just, season bajillion of Clone Wars. You need to like reestablish these things. People aren't going to realize that. Like, how was I supposed to realize that, Boba-Fett was an angsty teen, and the reason why he's, recruiting these people is because he sees potential in that. He never says any of that. Maybe there could have even just been a short line where he's like, I see these people in myself. I was like this, instead of just him doing it with no reason, it doesn't feel satisfying. You have to extrapolate these things from the Clone Wars, to make it better. it doesn't make the show better. It just, like I said, the show has to be good on. I feel like every show and every movie should be good, should have its own merit on its own, unless it is a direct sequel or another season of a show, right? I mean, with a sequel, you can get away with using pre-established things because you already assume that they have to watch this to understand it, right? With stuff like that. Iron Man 2, you need to have watched Iron Man 1 because it literally has 2 in the title. You have to watch the first one. If you watch the second one, you can't complain about it not making sense if you haven't watched the first one. This is a different case. This is a completely different show. It's a completely different medium. So a lot of people, like I said, just aren't going to be watching the Clone Wars and aren't going to understand this. People may say, oh, they should watch the Clone Wars. But not a lot of people are gonna. They're in for the live action stuff. They're gonna watch the live action stuff. So that's another thing. Like the dependence on Clone Wars is kind of it's a little bit of an issue, And what was I gonna get into next? I keep on getting off track. But let me just go straight into some of my biggest issues, and that is the villains. They really suck. I don't know what other way I could put it, but they feel garbage in the show in the context of like narratively, they don't feel like a threat ever. Like you never think of that these they're the main villains. They're supposed to be the drug traffickers or the syndicate or whatever, but you never feel like it throughout the show. And shows don't have to have a linear story. Not at all. They don't really have to. But the way this show sets up the stuff, it's so baffling all over the place. Think about how the show starts, right? Because the reason why you'd want to establish a villain early so you could build it up. So when you have the final climactic showdown, it feels satisfying. Avatar: The Last Airbender, the main villain, he's kind of a nothing villain. In the show, he doesn't feel satisfying, but still that final battle feels satisfying because he's been established and he's they keep on alluding to him and that's the final goal basically throughout the entire show. The Fire Nation is the villain throughout the entirety of Avatar, or at least the majority of Avatar. It's not like the last 2 episodes they bring in the Fire Nation and then they have this climactic battle. That wouldn't feel like anything. This show, it goes, like I said, all over the place. And the Syndicate only feel like a villain until much later. They're established earlier, but when you first see them, you're not like, yeah, those guys are the main villain. You first see them in a flashback, right? And it's during a train episode, which I actually really like the train heist. But during this episode, the reason they do this train heist because the people on the train start doing some target practice on the Tuskens, and they're like, hey, that's not cool. It's a bit of a jerk move to be doing target practice on us. Let's get on these bikes, steal these bikes from these guys and take down the train. So that's what they do. They take down the train and they're like, hey, we're sorry, bro. We just thought you were savages. We're just doing target practice. It's like, hey, go back to your boss, and tell him if he wants to go through these lands, he'll have to come through us and whatnot. And Bobo-fett, he goes over and is and they're like, hey, we'd love to pay you guys, but Baba Booey, we're already paying the biker gang to protect us. So kind of cringe, we can't be paying 2 people. And it's I will take care of it. It's do. And then goes back and his whole entire family's dead. He's and that's how they're established as just kind of this entity that feels separated. They don't feel like they're intertwined with Boba's story. The biker gang, or whatever. Yeah, the biker gang feels more like a threat, or more part of Boba's story than these, drug dealers. And they only find out until much, much later, until way after he's already declared war on the smugglers and whatnot, that it's established that they've actually killed, right, his Tusken family. And like I said, they don't establish a personal reason for Boba-Fett to not want these guys on the planet, right? And you really think about it, Why does he not? Yeah, because like I've seen people say like, oh, it was for resources, but in the show makes it seem like, oh, he's doing it for the people, and like why exactly? Besides, wanting revenge on his family, on his Tuscan family, which in his eyes he already got that. He already killed the bikers, which are the ones he thought did it. So he's not like wondering like, who actually killed them? Like in his mind, he knows. So that doesn't work for a motivation. So I'm like, it's really confusing because you can make the case that like, oh, they want him off the planet because, they're drug smugglers. They're smuggling these drugs and drugs are bad. Drugs are bad, guys. And like, that's kind of valid, but like, it's only valid if you establish it's hurting anyone. Like drugs are, it's just the definition of the word, or at least I think it's like, just like a medicine that alters something in your body, or something like that. You can get medical drugs, those aren't bad. You aren't killing, you wouldn't see Boba-Fett going to like the pharmacists on the corner and, killing them because they're, prescribing drugs, like they never establish why the drugs are bad, like in the real world, in a show that's ideally in a good show, they wouldn't have to do this, but in a show, you could probably, have the same show and it's just like they're heroin, dealers and whatnot. And you could probably think like, oh yeah, heroin is bad. They're the bad guys, right? Because you want the heroin off the street and it's harming people, right? A good show doesn't really... a good show would establish why it's bad. A great example of this is the Italian season of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't remember what it was called. But that show, it had basically the whole premise of it is they wanted... It's kind of similar to this, right? It's the main gang, they want to get rid of the Italian mafia, right? There's this big Italian mafia family, and they want to get rid of them, right? And they actually give you like and the reason is because it's hurting the people, right? And like all their drug trades and everything the mob's doing is hurting the people, and they establish this, right? They actually show like individual stories, right? These characters have backstories where they show the mob, and how the mob negatively affected their family. They show how people are addicted to the drugs and people are becoming drug addicts because the family, they're dealing these drugs, and it's actively making the lives of the citizens worse. And they show this in the show. They show the negative effect. What negative effect does spice have on the people of Tatooine? Like, tell me. They never show you why you want this stuff off the planet. Like people scoff at it, like you got the whole cowboy dude, I don't remember his name, and he killed the guys and he sees the bag of, the box of spice and he kicks it over in shame and lets it blow in the wind. Like, why is this stuff bad? If you establish why it's bad, then I know why I went off the planet, and he always says he's doing it for the people. They never show the people getting hurt by it. Like, if you were just to show, like, how it... just show us how it negatively affects the people so we know why these guys should be off the planet. And maybe there was, like, a line they said, saying, like, oh, it's draining the resources of Tatooine. Like, what resources? It's a desert planet. What resources does this planet have? Like, besides spice? Or I don't know if they ever say spice is actually from the planet or if it's being imported into the planet. Yeah, but it's just like I said, even if you were just to get a character that was close to Boba-Fett in the show, maybe in the backstories, right? And then, show them using the spice, maybe getting addicted and, dying because of that. That would be a bit dark for Disney. But like I said, it would give us a reason why we want these guys off the planet. It never, I'm never thinking these, in fact, it only shows you benefits of these people being on the planet. They tell you multiple times, and the families tell you, and the mayor tells you that the spice trade actually makes the planet money, right? The planet and the people and the economy of this planet, of this desert planet with nothing on it, right? That the trade of spice on this planet actively benefits it because it makes the planet a lot of money. Like, this is not a, like, they never show you why it's a bad thing. Why spice is bad. They just show you why. It honestly makes a better case for why spice is good and why they should use it. You know, it baffles me. I think it's just personally, it's just terrible, you know? And like I said, simple stuff like the main villain, you know, what they're fighting for. Like, what are they fighting for throughout the show? And it feels like it's for nothing. It feels like it's just to get these guys off the planet who don't even seem that bad. They only seem bad until later when he finally finds out, you know, that they killed his family. But at that point, it's too little too late. He's already started this war, you know. And like I said, and the war is also negative for the people, you know. They have this big fight, causes a lot of collateral damage and whatnot. And the whole fight is caused by Boba-Fett, and what for? What for? To get rid of these spice dealers that everyone else, every crime syndicate, and even the mayor, want these people to stay because it makes the planet more money, and they don't give you a reason like why you don't want them there. You know, they say like, oh, they're bad. We need an all-out war. Like, why? You know, that's my biggest issue with the show. There's some other things I have with it. For example, like, what does Boba Fett's title mean? You know, he's the ruler of this new crime syndicate, and they establish, and they don't establish. They say, okay, they don't establish this ever. They say he is in a position of power. Tell me, what power does Boba Fett have? Like, seriously, what power does he have in the context of the show? I never know what power he has. He's not like in a political position of power, right? He doesn't have any powers to change laws. He doesn't have a police force, right? You know, there's already a mayor of this planet. He doesn't have a big army at his hand, right? The show literally starts off, it's just him and Finnick, and they're like hiring some people. They hire the two pig people. They hire, you know, they literally mention at the end that they need more muscle, right? So why does he have all this power? Is it because of the money? But he's not using the money for anything. Like, he needs, like, why can't one of the other families just storm the palace? You know, storm the palace and steal the money. Why can't they do that? When you see, what's his name? When you see Jabba the Hutt, right? He's always had people around him. He always had tons of guards, right? You know what power he had, right? Because he had all these guards. He had all these people at his disposal. He had the Rancor. He had all this. That gave him his power. You know, when you stepped into Jabba's palace, you weren't the powerful one there, right? Jabba was, because he had all these people and all these things at his fingertip. Boba Fett, when he takes over, he doesn't. It's just him and Finnick, right? And sure, they are, you know, very skilled fighters and very skilled with weapons, but as soon as you bring in more people, they could easily storm the place. It's the desert planet. Who are they gonna call? Like, the cops? No, they're a crime syndicate. And like I said, they also never established that. Like, he's supposed to be this ruler of the crime syndicate. What crime are they doing? You know, he's such a not a nice guy, but he's so like pathetic, where like he wouldn't do any of this crime. Like, that's probably how the syndicate, you know, obviously makes money through doing crime. Like, obviously, maybe he has a backlog of money, you know, when he came in and just kind of stole the place. But like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, why are all these people giving him money? You know, like at the first episode, everyone gives him tribute. You know, he goes to the bar and they put like money in his thing. Like, why are they all praising him? You know, it would make sense for, you know, Jabba the Hutt, you know, why he wants money, because like he has power. If you don't give it to him, he could just snap like that and you would be dead, right? You would send in his goons and whatnot and you would be gone. But no, it doesn't show him having any power besides like one droid, you know? He even struggles against this crime syndicate, not the crime syndicate, the damn drug smugglers. And it's just, there's just a lot, my best way to describe this show is they don't establish anything. Things just kind of happen. It doesn't feel like, and also if things happen, it doesn't feel like it's going anywhere. Like, you could skip this entire show and not this entire show. The actual Boba Fett part of the Boba Fett show, the actual show that feels like it's Book of Boba Fett, you can skip all that. All you need to watch is the Mando stuff, because that's the only stuff that feels like it's progressing anywhere. Like, a show can end and still feel like it progressed. Progressed an overarching story, or just you feel like you went somewhere with this story. You went on an adventure. You did something. You defeated smugglers. But this, it feels like nothing. You watch the show and then you're like, okay, yeah, I watched that. And then, like, the longer you think about it, you're like, damn, that was garbage. Also, let me get into the Mando stuff. The actual part of the show when the show writers are like, oh shoot, no one actually likes this show. Let's put in some Mando so they talk about it, and that's what they did. And it feels so out of place. Like, it doesn't feel like it does. It's not like people said. It's not the same show. It's just Mando. They just put Mando in to. They turned it into the Mandalorian because they felt like it or something. And it also kind of ruins the Mandalorian in a way, because in this show they bring back Grogu, and they bring back Grogu into Mando's story. So the issue I have with that, it really cheapens the ending of. People have not mentioned this enough, but that really cheapens the ending of Mando season 2. And you could say it was inevitable that they would bring Grogu back, right? That, Disney, they want to profit off, baby, funny, haha, and that's like, so they want to bring it back, and that's understandable. It's kind of inevitable. It leads to kind of, I would say, cheaper, it leads to just story, like the whole generic Star Wars thing where they have to have a droid, they have to have a cute, marketable character. So it's understandable why they would. But to bring him back this soon, think about it. If, like, let's say in the future, right, when there's like, let's say there's like 5 seasons of Mandalorian or something, there's like a whole bunch, right? And some person who was like, oh, look at this, kind of older show. Oh, I'm surprised I haven't heard of it. I keep on hearing good things. I got to go watch Mandalorian. Like I said, let's say at this point it's an old show and there's already a whole bunch of seasons and it's long ended, right? When you're binging the show, you're going to go from, season 1 to season 2, right? And you're going to be at, like, the last episode of season 2, immediately, just pushing next episode and going to season 3. And within the span of literally one episode, you're going to have the emotional moment of Grogu leaving, and then in the next episode, Grogu will be there. I'm sure they'll have an explanation for it. They'll probably have like a quick recap in the beginning showing how that happened for anyone who didn't watch that. But that's just, it would feel really cheap watching that. Going immediately from that really emotional scene where Grogu has to leave and he has to make that hard choice to immediately having Grogu back in the story, just going on wacky adventures. Like, that doesn't sit right with me. And like I said, so that just makes the Book of Boba Fett kind of make Mando cheaper. If they would have just not had Mando and Boba Fett at all and just had it as its own kind of crappy series, that would have been fine, because you've been like, okay, yeah, that was bad, but, it doesn't ruin anything else. This ruins Mando, honestly. It would have been like, I would have been fine with it if they had, like, ideally, I think they would have not brought back Grogu at all. But, like, if you would just have maybe then bring back Grogu at the end of Mando season 3, that would have been fine. Like, maybe the plot, they do a few things in the plot, and at the very end, he's like, oh, I need to bring this armor to Grogu, and then, like, maybe at the very end, right? Like, that would have, at least it would have given some time, between the loss, that emotional scene where there's, it feels like a scene like that should actually have an impact on the show. Now that scene has 0 impact on the show, because you're going to go into season 3 and he's going to be back. So that, like I said, that emotional scene that's supposed to be impactful actually has 0 impact. So yeah, it kind of sucks in my opinion. And also, the way they handled the reveal of the choice, because it's really actually cool how they did this. I actually really like this part. Part of the part. Where Luke gives him a choice between, becoming a Jedi and becoming a Mandalorian, basically. He gives him the Mandalorian armor, or he gives him the lightsaber. So he's like, choose between, do you want to, go with Mando and, give into attachment and yada yada, or do you want to become, a Jedi? And it's actually pretty cool, because in the moment you could kind of see it going either way, you know. Like I said, obviously Disney would inevitably want, Grogu to be back with Mando, but you see in the moment, like there's like a glimmer of a choice, And the episode ends, and I actually legit thought that was the last episode for some reason. I don't know why. And I thought that would have been cool if it ended there or something like that. But then it's like the start, it's like at the, they leave this choice and it's a little cliffhanger, but they leave no anticipation for it because in the next episode, it's like immediately revealed Grogu chose Mando, They, like, the only anticipation you get for that is like the week in between watching the episodes. But when you're watching this in the future, it's going to be episode to episode. So you're going to watch the end of that episode, immediately go to the next episode, and then you like know immediately. Like as soon as the TIE fighter flies in and she's like, what is this cop doing? And then you're like, wait a minute, it's a TIE fighter. Grogu, what are you doing here? And it's like, it's a blunt reveal, Like they bring up this big choice and it's like this, and it ends and you're left wondering like, oh no, what's he gonna do? And it's like, okay, I already know. It doesn't feel like anything. Like, I feel like if they wanted to make this reveal in the book of Boba-Fett, which I really think they shouldn't, but if they were to do that, well, they did, but a better way to do it would be to have, like I said, have that choice in the second to last episode, and then you have the last episode. Grogu doesn't appear, basically in the plot of the episode, right? He doesn't appear in the beginning. They fight off the drug dealers, whatever. They have this big climactic battle. Mando's there, right? But then, like, at the very end of the episode, maybe this could even be, like, an end credit scene. Maybe not an end credit scene, but at the end of the episode, you have Mando, like, he's walking, right? And then, like, maybe, you just kind of, you see, like, blurry in the corner or something in the distance. You see, like, he's walking, right? And then you see, like, some TIE fighter wings open. And he looks like, oh, shoot, the cops, Or maybe he doesn't even say that. You just kind of hear the sound effect of it opening. And and he looks to the side. He's like, what? He's like, oh, no. And then, like, he hears some, like, rustling in the bushes, right? And then you hear, like, and then he looks back. And you don't see, like, he looks towards the camera, but he's looking to where he hears the rustling, right? And you can't really see that. And you hear just, like, the baby Grogu voice. You hear that. And then he's just Mando looking. And he just says, Grogu? And then the episode just ends. I feel like that would have been so much cooler because it's, like, a bit more dramatic. I kind of stole that from the ending of Monsters, Inc., with, like, when he looks at Boo and he just says his name and it just ends. But I feel like that would have been so much more, maybe not emotionally impactful, but, it would have left suspense. And then at the very end, you'd be like, oh, shoot, Grogu's back. Like, this is actually happening. It leaves it to the very end. And then, like, then you go into Mando Season 2, and Mando Season 3, and I still think that would have been crap for them to do, but I feel like that reveal just would have been a bit better, Like, you could just talk about the show and figure out just infinitely better ways to make this show work. And because, like, the show had potential, like to have this story about, Boba Fett building up his crime syndicate and whatnot and becoming a badass. But instead of it being about Mando building up a Boba Fett building up a crime syndicate, it's about Boba Fett going around being honor-based, hiring people, and the dumb biker, the what they call the robot teens or whatever, they're super stupid. Another thing I hate about them, the scene, like, they first introduced them by this water, guy, like a water miner, which, how does he even get water on this desert planet? Like, the planet is 100% desert. Actually, how is it even habitable? That doesn't make sense at all. People are able to live in deserts because they're able to get stuff like shipped from out of the desert, and there's little oases. But like, maybe there are some, but like you see the planet from space. It's just all desert. There's no ocean. So like, I don't know. Maybe there's like some water underneath the planet, but there's like this water miner, and it's like, these dastardly teens are stealing my stuff. And then like, Boba Fett is like, oh, are you stealing the water? It's like, And he's like, oh, the water's overpriced. It's not all our fault. We're so underprivileged. Meanwhile, they have these like super shiny bikes that are just, super clean, despite the fact that they're on a desert planet, and the fact that they can afford robotic replacements, and the fact they can maintain those robotic replacements, but they're so underprivileged and can't afford water. Yo, shut up. Yo, shut your ass up. Yo, like, oh, goddamn. And then Boba-Fett's like, they can't afford water. And he's like, and like the guy's like, and he's like, how much are you selling for water? It's like, oh, this many credits. Like, lower your prices. Like, dude, maybe there's a pre-established lore to how much water should cost on a desert planet. But let me remind you, it's a desert planet. It makes sense why water would be expensive on a planet that is literally it's sand. Where does he even get the water from? It's a desert planet. There's no water. It's just sand. Of course, water is going to be expensive on a desert planet. It's just sand. Okay, sorry for that weird edit there, but you get my point. Like, it just, I don't know. There's just elements of this show that it doesn't feel fleshed out. And I mean, maybe there's like, tons of other shows have these problems and whatnot, and I, kind of forgave them, and I'm just being strict because it's Star Wars, because I just realized it. But I mean, still, just this show, once you just like ask a few questions, and just really think about it critically and be like, well, this this hasn't been established to be this and whatnot. Like, the villains aren't really villains, and the plot goes all over the place. Like, if I were to just describe the plot, like, it's so all over the place. Like, it starts off, right? You got Boba-Fett. He's supposed to be, quote-unquote, ruling this, this crime syndicate. Then there's an assassination attempt. So the plot's like, ooh, who did this? What's this about? Right? And meanwhile, throughout this, there's like flashbacks to the past that kind of feel random, and it just draws you out of the story. And then you find out, like, okay, the mayor did the assassination. So then they go to the mayor, and then the mayor's like, it wasn't me. And like the plot is like, okay, that plot really isn't, looked at again. Maybe it's implied, there's what the problem or what the issue was, but it doesn't feel like. It's like they just go there and like, okay, that's done. Then it's like, I even forgot to mention this. And then it's like, the Hutts come in, and they're like there, and you're like, oh, the main conflict is going to be Boba-Fett against the Hutts, because that's like interesting. And then like the Hutts kind of come in, they're like, oh, they talk some crap, but then they just like come back, they're like, hey, yeah, you could take it. We don't really care. It's a desert planet. It's kind of worthless. Here's a Rancor. And that's it. Like, the only purpose they were there for is to give him a Rancor, It felt like it was going to be more, but then, like, okay, so that plot is over, right? And then it goes in like I said, throughout those two different plots, seeming like it's going to start up something. Like, the story's going to finally start, and you're going to see what the whole show's about. But it's like, no, we're just here to give you a Rancor, bye. And it's like only later, and it's like, oh, and it's only later in the show, it's like, we need to take down the drug dealers, and they only establish as threats until later. And then also, yeah, let's talk about Cad Bane, because everyone's talking about Cad Bane. He's cool in the show, I must admit. This feels almost exactly like the Kingpin thing. What I mean by that is, if you remember how they introduced Kingpin in Hawkeye, right? It's a very similar scenario where they're taking a character who hasn't really been in the main canon of the universe in a way. They're taking in a beloved character, a beloved villain, taking them into a Disney Plus series, introducing them in like the last 2 episodes, and then killing them off at the end, When they're obviously not dead, it feels almost the exact same as Kingpin, Like, maybe I'm just making this stuff up, but like it feels like it feels almost identical to Kingpin, except that Kingpin has, been in live action before, and this is the first time Bane has been in live action form. And for some reason, more people think
that Bane is actually dead, then they think Kingpin is actually. It would make like I don't get people on the internet. Like as soon as Kingpin died, everyone on the internet's like, "Oh yeah, Kingpin's not dead," which he obviously isn't, right? But then when Cad Bane dies, they're like, "Well, maybe he's dead. Well, maybe he's no, he's not dead." No, that is so stupid. People that are saying he is dead, it is the most stupid stuff ever. Okay? Makes sense in a story, but here, no, he's not dead. They wouldn't bring back a character into live action form, make an entirely new costume, make an entirely new design, get an entirely new, I don't know if the actor's new, but get an entirely new stunt person to do it, right? And then immediately kill them off. They would not do that. They did not kill him off. It would honestly make more sense to kill Kingpin off because he's been in live action and has been established for a while. Where Cad Bane this is his first time in live action. He's only been in animated form before. So, yeah, no, there is no way in the heck he is dead. He is still alive and he's gonna show up in future shows. So, yeah, I do like him in the show, kind of. He has this cool Western showdown, which I thought was really cool. It didn't make some parts of it didn't make a lot of sense. Like it was so okay. I was legit really frustrated about this. It was so stupid how he was quote unquote taken down and killed. Like they establish in the show like he has the fastest shot, right? And that he can shoot Boba-Fett quicker than Boba-Fett can shoot him, right? Like his draw is just that quick where, he can shoot you before you can even, pull a trigger. Like they establish that he's that quick, and even in the duel, like this is something they do establish. They do in a way they do establish Cad Bane as being a threat, which I really like. Because he has that face down with whatever his name is, Cop Vance, I think. I don't know, but he shoots the sheriff and the deputy before any of them can shoot him, right? Which is impressive and establishes that he is really quick and he is not to be messed with, right? Because he could just instantly take you down. And they establish this actually really well in the show. But the way Boba-Fett defeats him, Boba-Fett tries to shoot at him and he's like, I am quicker than you. It's like, bang, bang. And so he's clearly not able to shoot him. So what's he gonna do? He is going to attack him with a big-ass stick, sweep his legs, and then stab him. That, to me, is the most stupid stuff ever. If Cad Bane is quick enough to shoot you before you can shoot him, he is sure as hell quick enough to shoot you before you can grab a big-ass stick from behind your back, swing it around, trip up his legs, stand above him, and then stab him. You think, oh my God, in that one just thing I described, there are so many opportunities where you could just shoot him, It just doesn't make sense. In a way, it narratively kind of does. He's using the Tusken's weapon to take him down because he's grown. He's not using his guns. Doo-doo-doo-doo, It's that dumb stuff. But just logically, it makes sense. Because, if you can't use guns on him, in a way, narratively, you can't use guns, so he uses a melee weapon, right? But the big-ass Tusken stick that you have to swing around, think about what's quicker. This is back to the whole, what was it, urban survival, no, it's the Detroit urban survival, what do you think's quicker? Pulling a trigger from a gun or, swinging around this big-ass stick, and stabbing him at the end, where, he lifts it above his head dramatically and stabs it down. You think he wasn't quick enough to fire back? He didn't have, a gun already in his hand, ready to just pull out, quick draw, fire back. They establish him as being quick, but then it's they use the slowest weapon imaginable to defeat him. It baffles me. It doesn't make sense. I know it's kind of tricky to, if you can't outshoot him, then, how do you actually kill him? That's the tricky part. But the show just is okay, so if you can't get him with anything quick, get him with something slow. Eric? What? Okay. Well, I've been ranting on long enough. This video might be a pain to edit because of how long it is. Like I said, there's probably just some speed rolling or something, or I don't know, I'll probably use some copyright-free music in the background. Hopefully it's not super annoying, and I really want to find some good uncopyrighted music that I could use, because
I mean, I like, this is a random rant. This is a random rant, but side note, I really hate the copyright system for music. Like, you can include entire scenes of a movie in your video and it'll go into fair use, but as soon as you put 2 seconds of a damn hip hop song or any song, you instantly just get no money. They're like, oh, well, clearly all your money's revenue came from that song. You see, that's why everyone watched the video for that 2 seconds of song. Not the fact that you edited an entire video and made your own creative thing. No, they watched the video because you put the 2 seconds of Miley Cyrus in the background. So that's where you made all your money from. So in reality, you shouldn't be making that money. We should be making that money. Come on, let me get the money. Let me get the. Like, I don't even care because, I mean, I do care, but it doesn't affect me because I'm not monetized yet. So oh my god, that's a rant for another day. If you like this video, if you disagree with any of my points, or if you do agree, please tell me in the comments. I'm very willing to hear and discuss with y'all. I will probably respond if, I'll probably respond to your comments if you have questions and whatnot. So yeah, feel free to disagree with any of my points or agree. I don't care. This video's been going on for 50 minutes, so almost an hour long video. So expect other random rants to be like this. Just me ranting, and they're really long form and they're really unedited. And but you know what? Have a nice day. Enjoy. Go watch the 2011 Mango. Don't bother with Bobo-fett. It's really not that great. And have a nice one. And I'll see you guys. See you guys soon. Yeah. Ciao. Sayonara. Bye. Yeah.